Welcome to Growth Quest. Today we are honored to have Timothy Johnson from Inti with us, and he's going to share insights about the education industry and marketing in general. Hi Timothy, welcome.
Thank you.
So please tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so I've been with Inti now for about 3.5 years. Started my career in Nestle. Did sales and marketing there for about close to 10 years. Did a stint in the Philippines for about 2 years. After leaving Inti, I joined Citigroup. Was there with them for about 7 years. And then my last posting in the financial services was with Standard Chartered Bank, where I was the chief marketing officer for about 4 years. And then did the shift into education for the last 3.5 years.
And how has that been?
It's been exciting. Being surrounded by 18, 19-year-old kids is highly motivating. It's very enriching. You know, the sound level and the energy itself is just invigorates you every day when you come to work.
Fantastic. So tell me a little bit about what is your day-to-day role? What is a typical day for you?
A typical day for me really is what is most important to us is our students. And if you look at it from a marketing point of view, is really from a word of mouth. So you don't trust making a decision on education is not an easy decision. It's not like you're buying, if I was to use my previous role, it's not like you're buying an ice cream where today you can pick up Nestle, tomorrow you can pick up something else, and you don't really suffer too much from it. But making a decision about education is something that is highly involved. It's expensive, and it's something that you don't want to make the wrong choice. And so my day-to-day role is really to ensure that the students that we have are highly engaged, working with the academics in terms of doing that, so that there's word of mouth that actually goes out that says that, look, if you're looking at employability, Inti is a place for you to come for.
Right. Yeah. That's a great way, because at the end of all this is the ROI.
Yes.
And employability is a great way to actually put your money where the mouth is.
Yes.
Yes. Is that a tagline now for Inti? What is that a?
So if you remember for the whole of last year, if you couldn't get a song out of your years, it was our jingle of 98, 82, 32, which people kept singing, and people are now even dreaming about those numbers. And that really talks about the fact that 98% of our graduates get jobs within 6 months. 82% get paid higher, and 32% get actually jobs before even they graduate. Our new numbers are coming out, and we're hoping to see better numbers, and you should be able to see it in the next 1 month.
Fantastic. Now, the education industry is ripe for disruption.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are the next the next technologies or the next generation of education models that are going to emerge?
Good question, Indran. I think if you look at kids nowadays, and you look at kids growing up during our time, where even if you go back 2,000 years ago, when the days of Socrates used to teach, or even Aristotle used to teach, it hasn't changed much. Which is, you have someone who's a teacher or a sage sits there and surrounded by students. But now it's all about technology. At Inti, we use this thing called Blackboard, which is a learning management system that operates on your phone, and we have really flipped the way students study. So it's no longer the teacher comes in and teaches and you just take notes. So now the whole idea is, in class, it's all about discussion. So the topic is given, you're given assignments, and you go back and read about it. And then you come to class to discuss it. So you're learning from your friends, you're learning from your teacher. The role of the educator is now to facilitate learning. Because the most important thing, and this is something that I realized, and I wish that I was studying now rather than 20 years ago, which is, how do you create lifelong learning? And that's very, very important, because the jobs that are coming out, the kids are going to join, are not yet available. They haven't been created yet. So how do you create skill sets for these kids that will allow them to adapt and remain relevant from years to come?
Yes, absolutely. I think being a lifelong learner should be the goal of everyone, not just students at Inti.
Exactly.
Now, in terms of marketing per se, how big is the team at Inti?
So I have about a team of 20 people, and that covers both marketing, product, as well as PR.
Okay, so that's a lot on your plate.
It is.
How do you keep on top of all that?
I have a good team, and the team works in a very flat-like way, seamless, young, highly engaged team. WhatsApp chat group is always a good way of keeping track of what's going on. Of weekly meetings are also done, and so everyone is kind of abreast of what someone else is also doing. So in the event that some person is not around, the other person is able to pick up the pieces.
Right. So what do you expect from your marketing team? What are your expectations?
My
from a good
expectations
team?
is really energy. When I hire someone, they have to have what I call AMP, which is attitude, motivation, and passion. You may not come from the education industry, but as long as you got AMP, I think you can succeed.
Okay, that's a very well encapsulated AMP.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the mistakes that marketing managers are making today, what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing people in the industry, in your industry or other industries?
To me, one of the things that people tend to make, and I think sometimes all of us are guilty of that, is jumping on the next big thing. We think that something's a trend, and we think we can try it. But I think lessons learned is that when you've tried it, when you figure out that it's not working, then to backtrack from it. That would be my, kind of looking and seeing what's the next, what's the big thing that people tend to jump on the bandwagon. The second thing is what I find is that you've really got to understand where your consumer is and consumer habits and where are the moments that you can communicate to them. It doesn't mean that all media is not relevant anymore. Whatever media it is, it's how do you touch the consumer.
Okay. So since we're talking about old media, what has been relevant for Inti in terms of marketing spend, in terms of ROI on ad spend, for example? What are some of the platforms or the channels that have been working?
So we do a lot of kids nowadays are purely, I would say purely, spend a lot of time on digital platforms. So that's where you see us a lot of our action on. We do have started creating a lot of content because kids consume content. And the content can be as frivolous as doing Shark Doo-Doo, right? Which is the shark song, which every adult thinks is a stupid song, but kids engage with it. We managed to put out a video on that within a space of like half a day. We just got my social person to go out, get the choir club to do it. They were game for it, and we put it out, and we got a lot of engagement with it. And these are what kids are engaged about. I think the speed to create content is something that one has to be on the ball about, and how do you take advantage of that?
So what makes content viral, you think?
I don't think that any content is going to go. I don't think someone should set out to create viral content. I think someone should set out to create content that's compelling, a good story, and then before you know it, it'll go viral.
Right. Okay. I think that a lot of companies today, if you look at what they're doing, they've put out a lot of content out there, but it's not working for them. Meaning that it's just out there sitting out there. So a lot of them are a bit disappointed or demotivated with the kind of content. What sort of tips would you offer somebody like that?
I think anyone who wants to put out content, I think number one, you've got to realize that for what platform are you planning? Who's your target market, right? And how do they consume and where they're consuming the content? Every content that you're putting out right now has to be for mobile, right? You shouldn't be looking at it on your desktop. You have to review it on your mobile phone, number one. Number two, length of time. It's quite interesting. Someone mentioned, I think Rafiq just now at the panel discussion, mentioned that if you don't catch someone within the first 15 seconds, that's gone. You've got, because you're just gonna scroll down the feed. You've got to get that. Number two, I remember Sulin sharing maybe a year ago that 67% of people are not listening to any content they consume. So you better be very sure that whatever content that you're putting up there has got subtitles, because no one's listening to it, right? So those are some of the things that I think are good tips to give someone. Finally, the last thing is, if you put content out there and you don't share it, or you don't boost it, or you don't put any money behind to drive it, then I don't think you're going to see support. I think just putting a content outside there on your Facebook page or your YouTube channel without putting any sort of marketing dollars to drive it, you're not going to get anything. So I see a lot of people coming out with great content, but then it stops there. They think that there'll be natural progression and that it'll just organically grow.
Yes, I think both Facebook and Google and many of the social media platforms are pay-to-play platforms.
Exactly.
And I think the algorithms are such that you really get the value if you
Yes.
put some money behind
Yes,
it.
yes, because
Not a whole lot of
because
money.
organically, if you look at it, your Facebook page has normally got a 2 to 4% only reach among your fans. That's number one. And on YouTube, unless your YouTube channel's got a lot of fans, you're not going to see it. So that's really you got to pay to play, like you rightfully said.
Right. Yeah. And what's the future? What's the future for marketing at Inti?
I think the future is exciting. For me, it's the ability to connect with students, the ability to give our proposition. We've got a high brand awareness, we've got a pretty high consideration. I think it's just continuing to be relevant to the students. We've been around for 30 years. We've had 55,000 graduates. We want to be around for another 70 more. I think that's the plan.
Excellent. And what is your journey for the next phase? Meaning that how are you looking to overcome the challenges that you foresee?
So I think the challenges that I foresee, I think, is largely going to be solved or going to be answered by the team that I have. I think building a great team to one person is not going to solve whatever problems that I see ahead. I think having a good team is important. Having a team that's aligned to what the vision of the company is, and in this case, providing accessibility to education is important. So that I see is going to really be a strong pull to bringing the team forward.
Excellent. And parting words, meaning that anybody who wants to jump on the bandwagon and actually get their feet, hit the ground running, basically, with marketing, content marketing especially. Any quick...
I think anyone who wants to go into content marketing, number one, has to answer that question about who's your target market. What is your insight about your brand that you feel will make a good story? Good storytelling has not changed. People in the rock ages were writing stories on caves. Those stories haven't changed. Right now, any story that gets written or gets shot or gets videoed or gets put up has not changed. All of us love great stories, and we will continue to love great stories. And if you create great stories that resonate with the brand, then you've got something magical that happens.
Fantastic. Speaking of stories, tell me some success stories. That Shark Doo Doo was one of them. Clearly, that was a very a quick and quickly done job, but it worked because it was on time, right?
Sure.
So please tell me, what are some of the success stories that you
So one of the things that we did was we were wanting to penetrate the English-speaking teenage market. And one of the things that we did was that we actually sponsored 5 Seconds of Summer last year in January of last year. And we actually tracked it. So we did an awareness among the English target audience to understand what their awareness was of Inti. And then we took it after the sponsorship had ended, where we had it on radio, we did it on video, we did it on our digital platform, and we saw a substantial increase in our consideration among English speaking. And that was purely based on the fact that we believed that music and a band sponsorship would actually allow us to touch this group of students, and it did. And that has actually worked very well for us.
So it's really sometimes thinking out of the box,
Yes.
thinking completely, left field.
Yes, it is, and I think that's to take that point. It's really about looking at the problem in a different light, and rather than going in it head on.
Yes, I think sometimes a lot of people, they come up with ideas like this, but the fear keeps them.
Yes, and I think it also goes back to the support you have from your management to try. That's a challenge I think most people face, is you don't have the ability to try. And having that support of your management to try something and to learn from that. Otherwise, you're just going to go down the safe route, and safe never wins. You've got to risk something.
Right. One of the things I found with sales and marketing is there's a disconnect between these two teams. Do you find that at Inti, and is that something where you've tried to address that?
I think in Inti, I'm very fortunate. Number one, sales and marketing sits on one floor, and it's an open concept, and we have weekly meetings. Our goals are aligned. Both of us, my head of sales and myself, have a common goal. The team has a common goal in which we go after. So in that sense, there's less misalignment. We have weekly meetings to talk about how we're going to achieve our goals. So in that sense, I don't see any problems. I have to admit, in previous roles, I have seen where that becomes a disconnect, or there could be challenges. which can be resolved through, if you ask me, sitting down and just seeking alignment, because that works.
Yeah. How would you, for a company that's facing this problem, what advice would you give to help them align that?
Swap roles for a while. I find the best ways of doing it is get the salesperson to have a 1-year stint in marketing, and the marketing person to have a 1-year stint in sales. Nestle, where I started my work, was very good in doing that, where my first 2 years were in sales, and then in marketing, then in sales, then in marketing. And that's the kind of experience that I felt has really worked well for me, so that whenever I'm having a conversation with a salesperson, you actually know what the challenges that they're going through.
Becoming ambidextrous.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Anything else you want to leave our audience with?
No, I think for me, marketing is, if any young person is out there who wants to come into the marketing world, it still is highly exciting. If you like to touch consumers, or you like to be involved in the whole creation process of being able to reach someone, I think this is a fantastic industry to be in. I've been in the industry now for more than 23 years, and I think it's going to be an even more exciting time for years to come.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sim.
Thank you.
Thank you.